Okay, so we're going to continue with our congruence theorems, and we're going to add a couple today. Um, Actually, right here, this needs to say AAS. Okay, I shouldn't say AAS. All right, so first things first, let's just review the ones that we talked about. Remember, SSS is side, side, side. And this is when you have three pairs of corresponding sides that are congruent. And then we have side, angle, side. This is when we have two pairs of corresponding sides that are congruent and their included angle. Okay, that's your included angle. That is congruent. And then we have ASA, which is angle, side, angle. And this is where you have two pairs of congruent angles and their included side. Okay, remember that's called an included side. And the first new one for today is called angle, angle side. So angle, angle, side. Okay. This happens when you have two corresponding angles, two pairs of corresponding angles that are next to each other, so consecutive. Okay. And then an adjacent side. So this is one where the side is not included. It's an adjacent side. Okay, so it's next to one of the angles. All right, when these two angle pairs and an adjacent side on a side outside the angles is congruent, then the triangles are also congruent. That's called angle, angle, side. That's how we name it, angle, angle, side. All right. And the last one has to do with right triangles only. Okay, right triangles only. And so this one says, this is called your hypotenuse leg. Okay, and remember your hypotenuse is the side opposite your right angle. So if these two are my right angles, this side is my hypotenuse. Okay, your side opposite your right angle. Okay, so this says if a pair of corresponding legs, so these two are my corresponding legs, and the hypotenuse of the right triangles are congruent, then the two triangles are congruent as well. Okay, so those are the two new ones. We have angle, angle, side, and hypotenuse leg as our two new ones. So let's look at these examples. It says in each example, state the congruent parts. How are the triangles congruent? State the congruence, okay? So let's look at our congruent parts. The first thing I notice, I'm going to go ahead and write my corresponding parts. K corresponds to K, L corresponds to N, and M is going to correspond to M in this picture, in these two triangles. Okay, so I know that line segment KL is congruent to line segment KN because these two are marked. I also know these two right angles are congruent because they're both right angles. So I could say angle KLM is congruent oh sorry, that was wrong. Hold on. Angle KML is congruent to angle KMN because they're both right angles. Okay, and then I only have two congruence things. This is a right triangle, so I know that this is congruent to itself because it's sharing that side. So I can say that line segment KM is congruent to line segment KM. Now I need to decide if the triangles are congruent. Remember, I have side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and now hypotenuse leg. Now, I do not have three sides that are marked, so I know that it can't be side, side, side. This has two sides and an angle, so it might be side, angle, side. It doesn't have two angles and a side, so it can't be angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. And then this is a right triangle, so it might be hypotenuse leg. So remember, side, angle, side, your angle has to be included between the two sides. So if we were to use side angle side, it would have to be these two angles that are congruent to each other. But they are not congruent to each other in this situation. So it cannot be side angle side. So let's look at a hypotenuse leg. Since these are right triangles, okay, I know that the two hypotenuse are congruent to each other. And then this is a leg, the side that's not a hypotenuse, that's congruent to itself. So we know it can be congruent by hypotenuse leg. And then I have to do the congruent statement. So I would say triangle KLM is congruent to triangle KNM. Okay, let's look at our next example. Let's start stating our congruencies. So if I look here, I see C and E. C is going to correspond to E because they're congruent, which means B is going to correspond to F, and then D is going to correspond to itself. Okay, so I have triangle CBD and triangle EFD here. All right, so let's start naming my congruency statements. I know that line segment BC is going to be congruent, so BC is going to be congruent to line segment FE. I know that angle C is congruent to angle E because that's marked. Now, if I know my angle pairs, I know that these two are vertical angles, so they have to be congruent to one another. So now I have to name these two angles. So I'm going to start with this triangle up here. I can say angle BDC. BDC is congruent to, if I did BDC, I have to do angle FDE. Angle FDE. So angle FDE. Okay. Now, I need to decide if it's one of my congruent statements. So I have side, 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 side angle, side, angle, angle, or angle, angle, side, angle, and hypotenuse leg. Well, you don't have a right triangle here, so I can automatically close that off, cross that off. I don't have three sides marked, so I can automatically cross that off. I don't have two sides marked, so I can automatically cross that side off. So I know it's either between angle, angle, side, and angle, side, angle. So let's look. If I have my two angles here and I have a side, is this side between my two angles or adjacent to my angles? Since this side is not here, then that means it can't be angle, side, angle. You name it by how you read it, okay? So if I'm reading this from the picture, I would see angle, angle, side. Okay, so that means that this is congruent by angle, angle, side. And then I do my triangle statement. Triangle CBD is congruent to triangle EFD by angle, angle, side. All right. Okay, I want you guys to try 3 and 4 on your own. Okay, I want you to try 3 and 4 on your own because these are similar to something that you had in your notes before. I think it would be 6, 6, 6 maybe. This is maybe check your 6-5 or 6-6 notes. I think it's 6-6. So you do 3 and 4 on your own. We'll do 5 in class. Okay. I'm going to put you do on this. And down here, you do on your own. Okay. So look at your notes from previous days and do those. And then we'll do that one in class. Now, let's look at example 6. Which postulate, if any, should be used to show that the triangles are congruent? So let's look at example A. I know that these two sides are congruent because they're marked, okay? I know this side is congruent to itself because it's shared, but I also know that these two lines are parallel right here, okay? Which makes this side a transversal, okay? Which means now that these two angles are congruent to one another because they're alternate interior angles, okay? Now, I have this side is congruent to this side, This side is congruent to itself, and these two angles are congruent. So I want to be able to see if there is a statement that a triangle congruence theorem that I can use. So I know there's side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and hypotenuse leg. I know there's no right triangle, so it's not hypotenuse leg. I don't have three sides marked, so it can't be side, side, side. And I have two sides marked. I have two sides marked, so it can't be angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. We just have to make sure that this angle is between the two sides. So if I can read side, angle, side, and side, angle, side, then I'm good. My angle is between my two sides, so I can name these congruent by side, angle, side. Okay. Next, let's look at this one. So in this picture, I know this is a right angle. I know this is a right angle. Okay. And I know this is congruent to itself. So when I look at my congruence theorem, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, hypotenuse leg. Well, this is a right triangle, so I could maybe use this. Right now I have an angle and a side, so I know it's not side, 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 but I need two sides or two angles, okay? Or another leg, or I need the hypotenuse, okay? Now, I only have one angle and I only have the leg. I don't have the hypotenuse marked congruent. I don't have another angle and I don't have another side. So I cannot say that these are congruent. Okay? You have to have enough information. Next, let's look at this one here. Well, I have two sides that are congruent, two pairs of sides, these two, and angle. So I'm going through my list. Angle, side angle, and hypotenuse leg. I know it's not hypotenuse leg because it's not a right triangle. I know it's not side, side, side because there's not three sides. So I know it has to be two sides. I have two sides and an angle, so it can't be these. Now, I have two sides and an angle. Now, when I read this, I say side, side, angle, side, side, angle when I'm reading it. But that's not what this says. It has to be side, angle, side. And this is saying side, side, angle. Okay, side, side, angle is not a congruent statement. So we can say that these are not congruent. We cannot say that they're congruent. Now, had this angle been marked here, then we could have used side, angle, side. But because it wasn't, we cannot prove them congruent. All right, let's look at this last example here. It says angle A, we want to mark our picture and then show and fill in the blanks. All right, so we know angle A is congruent to angle E. We know angle C is congruent to angle D. And line segment AC is congruent to line segment DE. So this tells me that A corresponds to E, C corresponds to D, and B is going to correspond to F. Which means I can say these two triangles are congruent. So triangle ACB is congruent to triangle EDF. Okay. But when I look at this, now I have to determine side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and hypotenuse leg. It's not a right triangle, so I cannot use hypotenuse leg. It doesn't have three sides. It doesn't have two sides, so I can't use those. It has to either be angle, side, angle, or angle, side. So when I look at the picture, I see angle, side, angle, side, angle. Since they both have angle, side, angle, I can prove those congruent by angle, side, angle. Okay? And I want you guys to do number 8 on your own. Okay? Should have those done by tomorrow. Have a good night.